Our first opening speaker is the President and CEO of GE Healthcare Ultrasound and Cardiology. He's a global leader that has defined ultrasound innovation for over 25 years. I hope he's blushing, by the way, by this point. In his role, he is responsible for driving the growth and innovation for a $3 billion business with more than 3,000 employees. Here to talk to us about how AI is revolutionizing healthcare, leading to precision care, please give a very, very warm welcome to Roland Rott. Keep clapping, keep clapping. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good morning. It's a real pleasure for me to be back at Intelligent Health 2023. I have been here last time in 2019, 4 years ago. And when I reflected on these 4 years as I prepared, I really felt, wow, what has changed in the world in these 4 years, isn't it? COVID-19, as it broke out, it was almost a moment which let us pause and think what's happening here as we got locked down, as we were envisioning what does it mean for the world. But then very rapidly, so many changes took place in the way how we work, in the way how we provide healthcare, but certainly as well in the way how artificial intelligence can play a role in all that. And so this is what I'd like to talk about today. I will start with what are some of these key challenges in healthcare today. And then I'd like to give you some examples about how can AI make a real meaningful difference. At the end, I will talk a little bit about how GE Healthcare is tackling these opportunities. All right, so what has changed? If I start off as a speaker and say, what are the key challenges in healthcare today, I can make my life easy today, isn't it? Because I can just use ChatGPT, right? Hey, ChatGPT, what are the biggest challenges in healthcare today where AI can make a meaningful difference and improve outcomes? So if you enter that, it starts going, and here we go. So it looks like, no applause for ChatGPT, by the way. Okay, good. All right, so that's just a proposal. And yet we see there are a number of, real important points highlighted. How can we improve diagnosis and disease protection? How can medical imaging be enhanced with AI? How can personalized treatment be better supported? So this is what ChatGPT would come up. And as you're not applauding, I agree, ChatGPT isn't always right. So there is a lot more which needs to be considered than just one simple answer. All right, so let me give you a few data points here, what really goes on in the world of healthcare. It's actually shocking to realize that in today's world, there are still 3.8 billion people which have no access to even basic healthcare. So that's about half of the world population, right? No access to basic healthcare. Most of us, I would think, are privileged to have access to healthcare pretty much when we need it. But that's not the norm. And yet, more than 20% of global spend in healthcare is wasted, as studies show. It's wasted because there are a lot of inefficiencies in how healthcare is provided on one end, and at the same time, there's a lot of healthcare still lacking or getting even less accessible than ever before. And then again, we have a phenomenon that a lot of healthcare providers and physicians are actually prevalent to burnout. That hasn't gone better through the days of COVID. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of stress on healthcare professionals. We thank the healthcare professionals for what they have achieved in this very, very difficult time. But it's a fact of the matter that a lot of healthcare professionals nowadays face enormous stress with loads of patients, with all the demands they have coming to them. And there are studies which also show that medical errors, in fact, are one of the contributors of early or premature death. So these are some developments. And so the question is really, is that sustainable? How is that sustainable, and how can AI help? Some more data points on all this. Today, we have a major shortage of healthcare professionals. At this moment, there are about 7 million people missing in the systems worldwide. We hear that, in fact, when I speak with customers, pretty much everywhere, whether it be the United States or in India, where I was last week, everyone is sort of complaining, saying, we don't find enough people, or we don't find enough people with the competency needed in order to actually provide that care. So there is a shortage, and this shortage is only going to grow further. Also because world population keeps growing, also because we have more capabilities to detect things, and more people will want certain treatment and certain care in next coming years. So it's a growing problem, and we don't have enough healthcare professionals. At the same time, the healthcare professionals we have, if we look at a typical radiologist today versus 10, 13 years ago, right? 10, 13 years ago, they would look at about 500 images per day, 500 case images per day. Today, there's a lot more of data existing. 50,000 images would be the equivalent today. Not that they have to look through 50,000 necessarily, but those are available. So there could be something in these in order to detect whether a patient really is symptomatic of an issue. So who can deal with that? As a healthcare professionals, to stay up to date, you would need to actually consume, some updates. What's going on? How do you advance your care? And there are more than 6,000 medical journals existing, 900,000 articles per year. So no human can possibly even digest a fraction of that, right? And keep evolving while practicing like 12 hours a day. Another data point quite interesting is like every 3.5 years, the medical data which was produced in the world was doubling in 2010. Now, this is actually every 73 days. So it's basically every quarter, think about that, working quarter, medical data doubles in the world. It's a huge factor. It's a huge challenge, actually, for a lot of clinics, hospitals. Data itself is a challenge. What to do with all the data, where to store it, how to keep it safe, how to have the proper governance, etc. But then the clinical side of it, how to make use out of the data. So all these points together show that there is a significant challenge. And that challenge leads to essentially an analysis gap. Right? There's more available than any human can process. And this is ultimately a reason why AI can make such a significant positive impact in healthcare, no matter whether it's in medical devices, in pharma, or in the overall healthcare system. Now let's shift gears a little bit. I'd like to give you some examples of how AI can help practically. And I would like to start with some examples from ultrasound. What has also changed, ultrasound over the years, ultrasound, for those of you who don't know it, is a fascinating technology because it allows us to see inside the body in real time, and it's non-ionizing. So it can be used for various diseases, various types of examinations, like cardiac diseases, pregnancies, finding cancers, looking after the functioning of lung in COVID. So ultrasound is very versatile. It can also help a lot at the point of care, at emergencies or in the critical care suite. Now, ultrasound historically has been big devices, heavy devices, which you need essentially to bring the patient to the device, right? Today, ultrasound is so small, you can put it in your pocket. I have this here in my pocket, and all it needs is essentially a smartphone. And just show you that. It's a simulation now. This is not my heartbeat at the moment. It's a bit higher. But I could literally do an ultrasound exam here of my thyroids, of my heart, pregnancy. I could assess a lot of conditions pretty much from my pocket. And so such a device and such a solution can pretty much go anywhere and everywhere where care is needed, in a mature world, also in emerging world. So that sounds great, isn't it? However, it's not, unfortunately, as simple, because even to produce an ultrasound as simple as it looks, it's more like working with an SLR camera than working with an iPhone, right? You need to pretty much exactly know where you position this probe. You need to set parameters. You need to acquire proper images, and then you need to know what to do with it, to interpret them. So it requires a lot of education and skill. And that is a hurdle. Now, to overcome that, a number of startups started to actually create ultrasound guidance solutions. Caption Health was one of them. We acquired this company earlier this year. There are a number of other ones existing. which actually provide exactly such solutions. So here now, basically, the user gets real-time feedback. Right? As you hold this probe, you get real-time feedback on the system. Okay, go a little bit more left or right, up or down. It can adjust some scan parameters to optimize the image. It can give feedback like what you are seeing here is a 4-chamber view of the heart. And it looks good. It's diagnostically good quality to take this further for interpretation. So a quality score automatically saving the best images. So tools which actually help the user to get to a higher quality examination, right? And it's these tools which can help us to bring such technologies to more users, to more practitioners, potentially one day even to patients themselves. Do a self-scan and then let AI and the physician actually take care of the interpretation. So this is one example. I give you another example in ultrasound, more complex one. During a pregnancy, second trimester ultrasound, I'm sure some of you are parents here and have experienced that. Physicians do a very thorough examination of a growing child, and one of them is the fetal brain. And that's a complicated assessment because you need to take 3 to 4 slices in a particular position to ultimately do that diagnosis, right? In the meantime, the baby could move, right? You could not get the right angle, so this is not easy. It requires a lot of skill and education. It takes 1 to 2 minutes. Now, with the help of AI, that can be radically simplified. All that user needs is to acquire one volume of information with ultrasound, and an AI model can essentially segment that, and you see this with these lines, pretty much automatically for the user, present these relevant 3 planes, basically get confirmation, right? And ultimately, the whole exam is done in 10 seconds. So that doesn't only lead to some more speed, it leads to more confidence, right? You can get more done in a day if you have workflow tools like that. And this is why users are increasingly interested in these tools. They can help them to be more efficient, right? To have ultimately more time for patients or do 2 more patients that day. And that helps them both economically as well as is good for patients themselves to not wait that long. Some more examples. In X-ray. X-ray actually is interesting modality because X-ray is around for more than 100 years. Right? It's one of the oldest imaging technologies, and it's also the most used one in the world still. So besides ultrasound, CT, MR, X-ray is, in terms of usage, the world's most used modality still. And if you look into a use case like this, an assessment of a lung, like during COVID, that was definitely a very frequently used tool, or in this example, suspected pneumothorax. What you see on the left is what a radiologist would look like without AI. So essentially, you see that raw X-ray image, and you try to detect, okay, is there some structure in the lung compromised with pneumothorax? On the right side, you see a highlighted area, and this is what AI was actually coloring. So assisting the user, assisting the physician, making a proposal, if you will, take a closer look at that. Here is pneumothorax found with a 96.23% confidence. This is something to confirm or to double check what is going on with this patient. So I guess you see with these examples, there's true tangible value, right, in how we can actually help users, help healthcare practitioners to do their job. Some other example, it's not only about interpreting these images, it's also about getting to better images, getting to meaningful, confident images. And if you take MR as an example, MR is a very, very powerful technology. It produces huge amounts of data, gigabytes per second, in fact. And to process all that, to get to a clear image is a lot of processing. Now, AI helps us a lot there to create such better images by actually allowing the raw data to be optimized. So taking noise out, taking artifacts out, ultimately sharpen this image. You see a left and right from the same MR device. And the great thing is, this doesn't only work with new MR devices. It can be used with MR devices which were acquired 5 years or 7 years ago, and ultimately get to, again, better images, more confident diagnosis, it can also lead to faster scan times and hence, again, less waiting time. So all these are examples. A last one, really important one, breast cancer screening, right? Breast cancer screening, a huge need, a huge demand for it globally, and with mammography as well as ultrasound. A physician looks at, a large amount of such scans from mammography. Ultimately, with AI, that can be optimized. And also there, we have found startups which created great solutions together with clinical partners. Kios, one of them. Similar thing as before, segmenting such a potential lesion, right? Giving a risk classification, is this rather malignant or rather benign? It's usually not 100%, it's never black and white, right? But it is about the question, is it leaning towards this or that, and giving that score. Ultimately, these are tools which, as said, give healthcare professionals more confidence. And what it also does is, in this example, it reduces the need for unnecessary biopsies, right? Because without that, in case of doubt, there could be a biopsy be done. And biopsies, obviously, are not great for the patient. They cost something. Again, that's an inefficiency if you can avoid unnecessary biopsies. So if 30% of biopsies can be avoided because it's clear enough that something is benign, then this is a big improvement, big outcome. So the results are, these are just some random examples, but the results are that we have now more and more evidence, we have more and more studies and customers who are excited about these possibilities, who really say, they can confirm they are saving time. They have a 60% faster workflow. They have, more precision in how they are diagnosing. They have more confidence. They can get more patients done. Or they have some economic benefits as well to run their clinic, with a few more cases per day, and that ultimately makes a difference whether they are profitable or not. So these are very tangible improvements, and yet we are just at the beginning. What does it mean we are at the beginning? All these examples I've shown you are pretty much one modality after another. You could say these are spot solutions, but the big potential will be in the next phase to ultimately bring medical data of a patient together, right, from multiple modalities, mix in genomic information about the patient, lab data, vital signs, right, and all that to ultimately create a more comprehensive view of what is actually the particular and the best, the most precise diagnosis, therapy, or monitoring solution for this particular patient. So there's a huge clinical advance ahead of us if we are able to bring more of that intelligence together. And this is what we would call precision health. Now, in the last couple of minutes, and then there is time for one or two questions, I'd like to give you a bit of insight into how is GE Healthcare tackling and taking on some of these opportunities. First of all, what has also changed in the last few years, GE Healthcare has been a company around for more than 100 years, being part of General Electric. However, General Electric, we decided to split the company. Actually, General Electric will be 3 companies in the future: a healthcare company, an aviation company, and an energy company, in order to focus each of these companies much more on their specific goal. So in the beginning of the year, we had a spin out of General Electric, and listed at NASDAQ, we redefined our purpose being creating a world where healthcare has no limits. And the most important piece of it is, as said, we can focus 100% on that mission, and that's really what we do and what gets us all up every day. Now, one thing, as we talk about AI, we are quite proud of is this chart. Actually, we started pretty early to embrace AI in medical devices, and we worked with customers, we worked with partners, we worked with startups, and today, this is a chart of FDA cleared, so regulatory cleared medical devices, which are approved for use by the United States Food and Drug Administration. We are pretty much in a leading position here. And I really show you that also because we couldn't do this without partners, right? It is absolutely a collaboration which is needed here. No industry player on their own could make a significant impact. And so we strongly believe it's all about collaboration, to bring some of the big players together with startups, together with communities, together with healthcare professionals and providers, to really envision these use cases which have the biggest impact And those biggest impact use cases we should take on together and create solutions in order to improve healthcare. So lastly, I believe the next 10 years, even 5 years, will be extremely powerful, will be revolutionary in what we can achieve. If we just look back the last 4, we are a quantum leap further. The next 5 years will be huge in that regard. We have a chance to improve the outcomes, to get healthcare more efficient, but we can really only do this together in a collaborative spirit. And that's why I'm here. My colleague Jan Beger is here. We have some more conversations later today, and I'm very happy to meet you as well in a break. Okay, with that, thank you very much, and we have time for 1 or 2 questions, I believe. Microphone on.
Hello, there we go. Yeah, thank you so much, Roland. That was a fantastic talk. And as the first speaker of the day, you are probably going to take a little bit of time to warm up for your questions, but I'm going to leave you all with very awkward silences if you don't ask questions, because then I'll have to ask one. So please put your hand up if you have a question. Oh, gentleman at the front. So could you, there are runners with microphones. Could you please stand up? Please stand up. Say your name and where you're from, not geographically, your organization. I mean, geographically as well.
My name is Rajesh Chavan. I used to work for large pharmaceutical companies, and now I have my own company providing solutions to small and medium enterprises in Switzerland. Very interesting talk. Thank you so much for the insight. My question is always centered around access, because we're talking about advancing very cutthroat medical, we're using AI, ML, etc. However, there are people who cannot even afford an X-ray. So when we go to the eastern side of the world, let's say, or also maybe down south, also Africa and all that, what are the kind of solutions where GE Healthcare is actively involved, which improves access to these kind of technologies?
Thank you for that great question. Yeah, in fact, I've been to India last week as one example and exactly had that same conversation. Just to give you that example, 400 million people there have no access to healthcare. And solutions, so access has to do with affordability. Right? Affordability is gaining access, because if it's around but you cannot get there, if it's too distant, it's in a faraway city, or again it's too expensive, then it cannot be consumed. So it is our mission to bring the cost of some of these solutions much further down, to create value solutions which are good enough or truly good enough, and often from a technology standpoint even further advanced than some of the legacy, to exactly offer, like this ultrasound example, solutions which in the past would have cost 20, 30, 40,000 for a physician, in this case maybe 3, 4, 5,000, in the future 500, right? So we are very aggressively looking on the technology curve to further take cost out, to create solutions which are very affordable, but that's only one side of the coin. On the other side, it's partnering with governance, with societies, with foundations. So it's definitely a conglomerate of activities needed. And again, it's collaboration needed. Nobody can solve this alone. But thank you for the great question.
Great, thank you. And I like the fact that the questions have come right next to one another. So can you make sure that when you do have questions, you bundle them as pairs, because it means our runners don't have to run as far. Right, do you mind standing up and saying your name and where you're from?
Robert Rogowski, Cleaning Out. We create technology in data collection and exchange layer. And it's great to see this progress and your vision to create inclusive ecosystem to solve these problems that we all understand in healthcare. And once we talk about AI and how this can bring improvement, of course, it's great to see this progress in imaging space, but we all know that there is much more data types and sources, especially we have a problem with text data. So my question is that, what's your view on so-called interoperability problem in healthcare? Yeah. Are there any initiatives, and maybe healthcare is also committed to this topic as well?
That is a great question, and it goes exactly to this multimodal data, view. How do we bring all that together? As said, today the possibilities we have now also with AI are definitely much further. If you think about large language model, large models, right, foundation models. So the next phase is all about being able to use AI to make more use and meaning and bring even differently structured data together and make meaning out of that. So yes, we have, and I'm sure some of you in the audience here will talk about it, have activities on the way to use some of these latest technologies to exactly crack that nut. Because the lack of interoperability has been one of the big barriers, right, for such a long time in healthcare. Every vendor had their own formats. Even we had DICOM and HL7 and so forth, but ultimately you had different variants of. So to make meaning out of that, AI can substantially help even with very unstructured data. And that's one of the big levers which we have to unlock together.
Perfect, thank you so much. That's all we have time for, so can we have another huge round of applause for Roland?
Thank you very much.